The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and light orbiting a dead world. Inside, representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated seats, watching the holographic display with growing horror. The display showed a star system dying. Planets crumbled into dust. Ships exploded like fireflies in the night. An entire civilization vanished in hours. Thelvax stood at the center podium, his scaled hands trembling slightly as he gestured toward the display. He was old, even by his species' standards, and he had seen many terrible things in his 3 centuries of service. But nothing compared to this. "This is the 17th system we have lost," he said, his voice carrying through the chamber. "The Devourers show no signs of slowing. Our projections indicate that at their current pace they will reach the core worlds within 6 months. After that, nothing will stop them." The chamber erupted in panicked voices. Representatives shouted over each other, demanding solutions, pleading for hope. Thelvax raised his hand for silence, but it took several minutes before the noise died down. "We have tried everything," he continued. "Our combined fleets cannot match their numbers. Our weapons barely scratch their hull plating. Every species has contributed their best warriors, their finest technology. It is not enough. The Devourers adapt to everything we throw at them. They learn, they evolve, and they never stop." A representative from the Crystalline Enclave stood up. Relkoth was young and ambitious, known for proposing unconventional solutions. His transparent body shimmered with nervous energy. "There is one option we have not considered," Relkoth said carefully. "One species we have deliberately avoided contact with." The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew what he was suggesting. "No," said Ambassador Talmara of the Peaceful Union. "Anyone but them." "We have no choice," Relkoth insisted. "The humans are the only ones who might help us now." The word humans spread through the chamber like a disease. Some representatives hissed. Others made gestures of protection. The humans were legendary throughout the galaxy, but not in a good way. They were the species that had fought 3 world wars before even leaving their planet. They had created weapons so terrible they could destroy their own world 100 times over. They had killed billions of their own kind over concepts like borders, resources, and beliefs. When humanity finally reached the stars 200 years ago, the Galactic Council had been terrified. They watched as humans built weapons into every ship, fortified every colony, and prepared for war even in peacetime. After careful deliberation, the Council had quarantined Earth's solar system. Humans were forbidden from expanding beyond their own star. It was for everyone's safety, the Council claimed. The humans had agreed, though everyone suspected they were simply biding their time. "They are violent," Talmara said. "Unpredictable, dangerous." "Yes," Relkoth agreed. "And that is exactly what we need right now. We have been peaceful for too long. We have forgotten how to truly fight." The humans never forgot. They are warriors by nature. Thelvax watched the debate unfold. He understood both sides. The humans were frightening. Their capacity for violence was unmatched in the known galaxy. But Relkoth was right. The Council needed warriors now, not diplomats. "We will vote," Thelvax announced. "All in favor of contacting humanity for aid signal now." The vote was close. Many representatives voted against it out of fear. But in the end, desperation won. By a margin of 3 votes, the Council approved contact with Earth. "May the ancestors forgive us," Talmara whispered. 3 days later, a small diplomatic vessel entered Earth's solar system. The ship moved slowly, broadcasting peace signals on every frequency. Earth's orbital defense platforms tracked it immediately. Massive weapons locked onto the small vessel. Warning messages filled the communications array. The ship's captain, a nervous young diplomat named Pextil, transmitted the Council's message. His voice shook as he spoke. "People of Earth, we are the Galactic Council. We come in peace and desperation. An enemy threatens to destroy all life in the galaxy. Our fleets have fallen. Our worlds burn. We are here to ask for your help. We know we have wronged you by keeping you confined to your system. We know we judged you harshly. But now we beg you, please help us. We have nowhere else to turn." The response came within minutes. A gruff human voice, speaking in heavily accented galactic standard. "This is Commander Park Dae-ho of Earth Defense Command. We received your message. Stand by for further instructions." Pextel waited nervously. Hours passed. Finally, another transmission arrived. "You will dock at Station 7. Someone will meet you there." The station was enormous, bristling with weapons. Pextel's small ship looked like an insect next to it. As he docked, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. Every visible weapon was active, charged, and tracking nearby space. The humans even kept their weapons hot in their own system, inside the station. Pextel met Commander Park. The human was old by their standards, with gray hair and scars covering his face. He wore a military uniform covered in symbols Pextel did not recognize. The commander looked at Pextel with cold, calculating eyes. "Show me the enemy," Park said without preamble. No greeting. No diplomacy. Just business. Pextel activated his portable display and showed Park everything. The Devourers. The fallen civilizations. The failed battles. The projected timeline of extinction. Park watched silently, his expression never changing. When the display ended, Park was quiet for a long moment. "Your council quarantined us because you thought we were too violent," he finally said. "You looked at our history and decided we were too dangerous to be part of your peaceful galaxy." "Yes," Pextel admitted quietly. Park smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Well, now you need violence. Now you need dangerous. Funny how that works." He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at Earth below. "I will take your request to our leadership, but understand something. If we do this, we do it our way. No rules, no restrictions. No complaints about our methods. You want our help? You get all of us, including the parts that scare you?" Pextel nodded quickly. "Anything. We will accept any terms." "Good. Go back to your council. Tell them Earth's answer will arrive in 1 week. And tell them to prepare. When humanity goes to war, the galaxy remembers." Pextel returned to his ship and fled the solar system as quickly as possible. Behind him, Earth began to mobilize. Warning sirens echoed across every colony. Ships powered up. Weapons factories went to full production. Soldiers reported for duty with grim smiles on their faces. After 200 years of forced peace, humanity was going to war again. And this time, the entire galaxy would watch. Admiral Kim Hana stood on the bridge of the TDS Indomitable, watching Earth grow smaller in the viewscreen. Behind her flagship, 99 other warships followed in formation. It was humanity's first interstellar fleet. And it was heading to war. Kim was 53 years old and had spent 30 of those years in military service. She had fought in the African Consolidation, commanded peacekeeping forces in the Mars colonies, and survived the brutal asteroid belt conflicts. She knew war. She understood it like some people understood music or art, and she knew that the Galactic Council had no idea what they had unleashed. "Admiral, we have a transmission from the Galactic Liaison Officer," her communications officer announced. "Put it through," Kim replied. The alien appeared on her screen. It was a Valtarian, a species known for their diplomatic skills. The creature looked uncomfortable in the military environment, its multiple eyes darting around nervously. "Admiral Kim, I am Observer Kethril. I have been assigned to document your campaign and ensure you follow the Galactic Warfare Conventions." Kim raised an eyebrow. "Warfare conventions?" "Yes, rules that govern acceptable conduct in military operations. Prohibitions against certain weapons, requirements for civilian protection, proper treatment of—" "No," Kim interrupted. Kethril blinked in confusion. "I am sorry, I do not understand. You asked us for help? We agreed. We did not agree to follow your rules." Kim leaned forward. "Your conventions did not stop the Devourers. Your proper warfare did not save 17 civilizations, so we will fight this war our way. You are welcome to watch and document, but do not tell us how to do our job." The liaison officer looked horrified but said nothing more. Kim ended the transmission and turned to her tactical officer. Lieutenant Han? Status report? Lieutenant Han Subin was young, barely 25, but she had graduated top of her class at the Naval Academy. She had chosen intelligence work over field command, preferring to outthink enemies rather than outfight them. We will reach the Helion system in 6 hours, Admiral. Long-range scans show the Devourers are currently harvesting the 4th planet. The native Lumarian population is estimated at 4 billion. Current survival rate is dropping by the hour. What do we know about Devourer tactics? They swarm, Admiral. Overwhelming numbers, biomechanical ships that can repair themselves, and they show no fear. The Council fleets usually engage at long range, trying to minimize losses. It has not worked. Kim nodded. Then we will do the opposite. Prepare all ships for close combat. I want every weapon system hot. Load kinetic rounds, arm nuclear missiles, and charge the plasma batteries. All of them, Admiral? That will violate energy conservation protocols. Did I ask about protocols, Lieutenant? No, Admiral. Arming everything now? 6 hours later, the fleet emerged in the Helion system. The view screen showed a nightmare. The Devourers had surrounded the 4th planet like a swarm of insects. Their ships were organic-looking things, all curves and tendrils and pulsing lights. Thousands of them. Admiral, the Galactic Observers are requesting we perform reconnaissance and withdraw to plan a proper strategy, the communications officer reported. Denied, Kim said immediately. She activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Admiral Kim. We have 6 hours before those creatures finish eating 4 billion people. We are not here to watch. We are not here to plan. We are here to kill. All ships, attack formation. Target the Devourer clusters around the planetary orbit. Fire everything. Captain Li Taiyang commanded the destroyer TDS Relentless, positioned on the fleet's right flank. When the Admiral's orders came through, he grinned. This was what human warships were built for. You heard the Admiral, he shouted to his crew. Give them hell. The human fleet charged forward. No fancy maneuvers. No careful positioning. Just a straight aggressive push into the enemy swarm. The Galactic Observers watching from their safe distance gasped in shock. The Devourers reacted immediately, turning to meet this new threat. They outnumbered the humans 10 to 1. But they had never fought humans before. The first human missiles struck. Nuclear warheads detonated among the Devourer ships, creating miniature suns in the darkness. The blasts vaporized dozens of enemy vessels. Before the light faded, kinetic rounds followed, massive tungsten slugs moving at a fraction of light speed. They punched through Devourer hulls like paper. Multiple hits, Captain, Lieutenant Quan Yuna reported from the weapons station. She was young and brilliant, the youngest ace pilot before transferring to naval service. Enemy shields are not adapting to our weapons. That is because they have never seen weapons this crude, Lee laughed. Keep firing. The plasma cannons added their fury to the assault. Superheated matter burned through Devourer formations. The aliens had adapted to the Council's sophisticated energy weapons, but they had no defense against humanity's philosophy of bigger is better. But the Devourers had numbers. They swarmed around the human ships, their tendrils reaching out to grab and crush. The destroyer TDS Relentless found itself wrapped in one of these massive organic cables. The tendril began to squeeze and the hull groaned under the pressure. Hull breach in 3 sections, the engineering officer reported. Captain, we cannot break free. Captain Lee looked at his crew. They were all young, barely out of training. They looked at him with fear but also determination. They knew what had to be done. Engine room, overload the reactor, Lee ordered calmly. Sir? The engineer asked, uncertain. You heard me. Set it to explode in 60 seconds. Everyone else, abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. What about you, Captain? Yuna asked. Someone needs to make sure the Devourers do not let go before detonation. Now go, that is an order. The crew hesitated, but only for a moment. They ran for the escape pods. Lee watched them go, then turned to his console. He manually overrode every safety system, forcing the reactor past its limits. The ship began to shake. "Come on," he whispered, watching the Devourers tighten their grip. Just a few more seconds. The reactor reached critical mass. Captain Li Taiyang had just enough time to smile before the TDS Relentless exploded with the force of a small star. The detonation vaporized 17 Devourer ships and severely damaged 30 more. Admiral Kim watched the explosion from the Indomitable's bridge. She closed her eyes briefly, honoring Li's sacrifice, then opened them again. "Continue the assault," she ordered. "Make his death count." The battle raged for 8 hours. Human ships fought with a ferocity that shocked both allies and enemies. When ammunition ran low, pilots rammed their fighters into Devourer vessels. When weapons failed, Marines boarded enemy ships with nothing but combat knives and grenades. They fought like creatures possessed, screaming battle cries in dozens of Earth languages. Major Yunjae led a boarding party onto a Devourer bioship. His team of 20 Marines cut through the organic corridors with plasma cutters and explosives. The interior was a nightmare of living walls and hostile creatures. They lost 5 people in the first corridor. "Keep moving," Yun shouted over the gunfire. "Plant the charges and get out." They reached the ship's core, a pulsing organ that seemed to power the entire vessel. Yun personally placed the explosive charges, setting the timer for 2 minutes. They ran back through the corridors, fighting every step of the way. The ship began to scream, a horrible biological sound that made their teeth hurt. They made it to their boarding craft with seconds to spare. The Devourer ship exploded behind them, sending debris in every direction. When the battle finally ended, the Devourers retreated. It was the first time in the war they had withdrawn from a system. The Lumarians were saved, though their planet was damaged. The human fleet had lost 8 ships and 2,000 personnel. But they had one. Admiral Kim stood on the bridge, watching the rescue operations begin. The galactic observers were transmitting frantic messages about human brutality and unacceptable tactics. Colonel Beek Sora, who had commanded the ground forces, appeared on Kim's screen. Her armor was covered in alien blood and she looked exhausted. "Admiral, the observers are complaining about our methods." Kim's expression hardened. "Tell them this, Colonel. They asked for help. We gave it. If they do not like how we fight, they can save the next planet themselves. But I think they will find that sometimes you need monsters to defeat monsters." Beek smiled grimly. "Yes, Admiral. I will tell them exactly that." The war had been going on for 3 months. Humanity's fleet had liberated 14 systems, destroyed countless Devourer vessels, and saved billions of lives. But with each victory, the Galactic Council grew more nervous about their saviors. Major Yunjae stood in the command center of a liberated colony world, watching his Marines escort civilian refugees to the transport ships. He had been fighting non-stop since the campaign began, and the weight of it was starting to crush him. Every battle was the same. Humans charged in with overwhelming force, destroyed everything that moved, and won at terrible cost. But this latest mission had been different. This had been wrong. The colony on Vexstar 7 had been partially infected by the Devourers. The biomechanical parasites had taken over thousands of civilians, turning them into hybrid creatures. The infection could not be removed. There was no cure, and infected individuals would eventually transform completely, becoming new Devourer units. The orders had been clear. Eliminate all infected individuals before they could spread the contagion. Yun had watched his soldiers shoot civilians in the streets. Men, women, children, all infected. All had to die. It was efficient. It was practical. It was the only way to save the colony. It was also the most horrible thing Yun had ever done. "Major," one of his soldiers called out. Private Kang Mai was young, only 19, and this was her first real combat deployment. She was kneeling next to a small alien child, one of the local species. The child was crying. "What is it, Private?" Yun asked, walking over. "This child, sir. She is alone. Her parents were infected. We had to—" "I know," Yun said quietly. He knelt down next to the child. She looked at him with huge, frightened eyes. It is okay. You are safe now. We will take you somewhere safe. The child, whose name was Piptic, grabbed onto Kong's hand and would not let go. Kang looked at Yoon with pleading eyes. Can I stay with her, sir? Just until we get her to the refugee center? Yoon nodded. Go, I will handle things here. As Kang led the child away, Yoon looked around at the colony. Smoke rose from burning buildings. Bodies littered the streets. Human soldiers patrolled with weapons ready, shooting anything that looked suspicious. This was victory. This was what salvation looked like when humans provided it, back at the Galactic Council Station. A heated debate was taking place. Ambassador Talmara of the Peaceful Union stood before the assembled representatives, her voice filled with emotion. We must address what humanity is doing, she insisted. Yes, they are winning battles. Yes, they are saving lives. But their methods are barbaric. They execute infected civilians without trial. They use weapons that cause unnecessary suffering. They sacrifice their own people without hesitation. This is not the kind of civilization we want in our galaxy. Relkuth, who had originally proposed contacting humanity, stood to respond. What choice do we have? Our fleets failed. Our peaceful methods failed. Humanity is doing what we could not. At what cost? Talmara demanded. Look at the reports. Human Marines laugh while charging into certain death. Their soldiers show no fear, no mercy, no hesitation. They are machines of war. What happens when the Devourers are defeated? Will humanity simply go back to their system and be peaceful? Or will we have replaced one threat with another? Speaker Thelvax listened to both sides. He understood the concerns. He had watched the human battle recordings. He had seen their tactics, their weapons, their ruthless efficiency. It was terrifying. But it was also working. We will table this discussion, he announced. The war is not over. We need humanity until the Devourers are defeated. After that, we will address their place in our galaxy. Admiral Kim received a copy of the council debate. She read it in her quarters aboard the Indomitable, and when she finished, she threw her tablet across the room. They want to quarantine us again, she said to Captain Park Dae-ho, who had been promoted to her strategic advisor. After we bleed for them, after we die for them, they want to lock us away because we make them uncomfortable. Park picked up the tablet and skimmed through the document. He was unsurprised. Did you expect anything different, Admiral? We knew this would happen. They fear us. They always have? Then why are we helping them? Because it is the right thing to do. Because billions of innocent people will die if we do not. And because... Park paused, choosing his words carefully. Because maybe this is humanity's chance to prove we are more than just warriors. That we can use our violence for something good. Kim looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You are right. But that does not make it easier. On the liberated colony of Cascade Prime, Private Kong continued to care for young Piptic. The child followed her everywhere, slowly learning to trust humans despite their frightening appearance. Other soldiers noticed and began interacting with the refugees more gently, remembering that they were here to protect people. Not just kill enemies, but not everyone shared this sentiment. Engineer Nam Jiwoo worked in the Weapons Development Division, creating new ways to destroy Devourer ships. His latest creation was a biological weapon that would dissolve organic matter on contact. It was incredibly effective against the biomechanical DVOURERS. It was also incredibly inhumane. I call it the Dissolver, Nam explained to a group of visiting council scientists. One drop will break down biological tissue at the molecular level. The victim feels every second of it. The alien scientists looked horrified. This violates 17 different conventions on humane warfare. Nam laughed bitterly. There is nothing humane about this war. The Devourers do not care about your conventions. They do not take prisoners. They do not negotiate. They consume. So we give them something worse than death. We give them pain they cannot adapt to. One of the scientists fled the room to vomit. Nam just shook his head and continued his work. Admiral Kim called a meeting of all senior officers. She needed to address the growing concerns, both from the council and from her own people. "I know some of you are struggling with what we are doing," she began. "I know it feels wrong sometimes. We are killing people who are infected but not yet fully transformed. We are using weapons that cause suffering. We are sacrificing our own soldiers in ways that seem wasteful. But understand this, we are in a war of extinction. If we lose, everyone dies. Not just us, everyone, every species, every civilization, every child like Piptic." She paused, letting her words sink in. The Galactic Council lived in peace for 1,000 years because no one threatened them. They forgot that peace is not free. It must be defended. And sometimes defending it requires ugly choices. We carry humanity's bloody history with us. We remember the wars, the genocides, the nuclear fires. We remember because it taught us to survive. The Council forgot how to survive. That is why they need us. Major Yoon raised his hand. "What happens after, Admiral? When the war is over?" Kim met his eyes. "I do not know, Major, but whatever happens, we will face it knowing we did what was necessary. We saved lives. We gave the galaxy a future. If they choose to fear us for that, then that is their choice. But we will not apologize for being what we are." The meeting ended and the officers returned to their duties. But Yoon's question lingered in Kim's mind. What would happen after? Would humanity finally be accepted? Or would they be monsters in the eyes of those they saved? Private Kang sat with Piptic in a refugee shelter, teaching her a human children's song. The child's laughter echoed through the room, a rare sound of joy in a war-torn galaxy. Other refugees watched cautiously at first, then slowly approached. Soon, Kang was surrounded by aliens of all species, all curious about the humans who fought so brutally but could also be so gentle. Maybe. Kang thought this was how peace really started. Not with treaties or councils, but with small moments of connection between scared people trying to survive. The war continued, and humanity pushed deeper into Devourer territory. Every battle was won. Every system was liberated, but the cost kept rising, and the question remained unanswered. What was humanity becoming? Lieutenant Han Subin had not slept in 3 days. Her eyes burned as she stared at the decrypted Devourer communications scrolling across her screens. The intelligence officer had been working non-stop to understand how the enemy communicated, and what she had discovered made her blood run cold. "Admiral Kim," she called over the communications system. "You need to see this immediately." 10 minutes later, Admiral Kim stood in the intelligence bay, reading Han's findings. Her expression grew darker with each line. "Are you certain about this?" Kim asked. "Yes, Admiral. I have verified it 3 times. The Devourers are not invaders from outside the galaxy. They were created here by an ancient race called the Architects. The Architects built the Devourers as a fail-safe weapon, designed to eliminate civilizations that became too weak or decadent to defend themselves." "A test," Kim said quietly. "Exactly. And the current Galactic Council failed it. The Architects are long dead, but their weapon lives on, following its programming. The Devourers will not stop until every advanced civilization is destroyed or until someone proves they are strong enough to survive." Kim studied the data. "Where is the control center?" "There must be a central point coordinating all Devourer activity." Han brought up a star map. At its center was a massive structure larger than most planets. "We call it the Nexus. It is located at the galactic core, surrounded by the largest concentration of Devourer forces we have ever seen. Our estimates suggest millions of ships defend it. Destroying the Nexus will shut down every Devourer unit simultaneously. Then that is our target." Captain Park Daeho joined them, studying the map. "Admiral, this is suicide. Even with our entire fleet, we cannot fight through millions of ships. And the Nexus is protected by a dark matter shield that nullifies conventional weapons." "Then we will use unconventional weapons," Kim replied. She turned to Han. "What do we have that can penetrate that shield?" Han hesitated. There is one option. Project Singularity. It was developed during the Unification Wars but never deployed. A contained micro-black hole designed to collapse any structure from the inside. But it requires manual delivery. The carrier ship would need to penetrate the shield and deploy the weapon at the core. The explosion would destroy everything within a light-year radius, including the delivery ship, Park said. Yes, Hun confirmed. There would be no escape. It is a one-way mission. Kim stood in silence for a long moment, processing the information. Then she nodded. Prepare the weapon. I will address the fleet. An hour later, every human in the fleet gathered to watch Admiral Kim's transmission. She stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, her uniform crisp, her posture straight. She looked every bit the warrior she was. Soldiers of Earth, she began. For 5 months we have fought the Devourers. We have liberated 30 systems. We have saved billions of lives. We have proven that humanity can be a force for good in this galaxy. But the war is not over. We have discovered the source of the Devour threat, a structure called the Nexus. If we destroy it, the war ends. Every Devourer shuts down. The galaxy is saved? She paused, letting the hope sink in before delivering the reality. But reaching the Nexus requires a sacrifice. One ship must carry a weapon through enemy defenses and detonate it at the core. That ship and its crew will not return. I am calling for volunteers. I will not order anyone to take this mission. It must be a choice. Within minutes, every single human in the fleet had volunteered. Kim had expected that. Humanity's greatest strength had always been their willingness to sacrifice for others. She selected the crew personally. Captain Song Haijin would command the mission ship, renamed the TDS Valiant. Song was 42 years old, a veteran of countless battles, and had lost her husband and son to the Devourers in the early days of the war. She volunteered immediately. Engineer Park Min-soo joined her crew. His entire family had lived on a colony world consumed by the Devourers. He had nothing left to live for except vengeance. Weapons officer Kwon Yuna transferred from another ship. She was young, brilliant, and wanted her death to matter. Medic Rojiho insisted on coming, arguing that someone needed to document the mission. He would record everything so the galaxy would remember their sacrifice. Navigator Shin Yunji calculated they had a 0.3% chance of survival. She volunteered anyway. 20 more specialists joined them, each with their own reasons. Each knowing they would not return, the Valiant was prepared. The Singularity weapon was loaded. The crew said their goodbyes. Private Kang Mai-rae brought young Piptik to see the ship depart. The child, who had learned to speak basic human language, cried as the crew boarded. Why do they have to go? Piptik asked. Because they are heroes, Kang replied, tears streaming down her own face. They are going to save everyone. The fleet departed for the galactic core. It took 2 weeks to reach Devour territory. The closer they got, the more enemy ships appeared on sensors. By the time they reached the Nexus, they were surrounded by hostile forces. Admiral Kim addressed the fleet one final time. This is it. Everything we have fought for comes down to this battle. The Valiant needs just a few minutes to reach the Nexus core. We are going to buy them those minutes with our lives. Fight hard. Fight well. And remember why we are here. The battle began. It was the largest space combat in galactic history. Hundreds of human ships faced millions of Devourer vessels. The mathematics were impossible, but humanity had never cared about mathematics. They charged forward, firing everything they had. Nuclear missiles created temporary suns. Kinetic rounds punched through Devourer formations. Plasma weapons burned entire clusters of enemy ships. But for every Devourer destroyed, 10 more took its place. The TDS Indomitable led the charge. Admiral Kim standing on the bridge as her ship took hit after hit. All power to forward shields, she ordered. We must clear a path for the Valiant. Captain Li Taiyang, who had survived the earlier battles against all odds, commanded the battlecruiser TDS Vengeance. He watched the Valiant moving through the chaos, so small and fragile compared to the massive Devourer vessels. All ships, form up on me, he ordered. We are going to escort the Valiant as far as we can. 20 ships broke formation and surrounded the Valiant, creating a protective shell. Devourer weapons hammered them mercilessly. Ships exploded one by one, but they held their formation. Captain Song watched from the Valiant's bridge as the escort ships died protecting her. Each explosion was another sacrifice for the mission. We are approaching the shield boundary, Navigator Shin announced. The dark matter shield shimmered ahead of them, a barrier designed to stop any known weapon. But the Valiant was small enough to slip through if they could just reach it. Vengeance is taking heavy damage, Song's communications officer reported. On the Vengeance, Captain Lee knew his ship was dying. Systems were failing across the board. But the Valiant was so close to the shield. All remaining power to engines, Lee ordered. Ram the Devourer command ship blocking the Valiant's path. Sir, that will destroy us, his second officer protested. I know, Lee smiled. Tell the Valiant to make this count. The Vengeance accelerated to maximum speed and slammed into the massive Devourer vessel, creating an explosion visible across the battlefield. The path was clear. The Valiant shot through the opening and penetrated the dark matter shield. Behind them, the battle continued to rage, but Song's crew was now isolated, deep in enemy territory with no hope of rescue. Set course for the Nexus core, Song ordered. Full speed. Activate the Singularity weapon. Engineer Park worked frantically to prepare the weapon. It was ancient technology, never fully tested, running on theories that might be wrong. But it was their only chance. Devourer ships inside the shield pursued them, but the Valiant was fast. They dodged and weaved through the structures surrounding the Nexus, getting closer with each passing second. 2 minutes to core, Shin announced. Outside the shield, Admiral Kim watched her fleet dying. More than half her ships were destroyed, but they had bought the time the Valiant needed. Come on, Song, Kim whispered. Finish this. Inside the Nexus, Captain Song brought her ship to the exact center. The structure was alive, pulsing with energy. She could feel it through the hull, a heartbeat that controlled billions of Devourer units across the galaxy. Singularity weapon is armed, Park reported. Detonation in 30 seconds. Song activated the ship-wide communications. This is Captain Song. We have reached the target. The weapon is armed. In 30 seconds, this war ends. It has been an honor serving with you all. She opened the channel to the fleet, to the galaxy, to everyone who would listen. This is the TDS Valiant. We came from a violent world. We fought each other for thousands of years before we looked to the stars. But in all that bloodshed, we learned something important. We learned that some things are worth dying for. Today, we die so you can live. Remember us not as monsters, but as the ones who answered when you called. Humanity may be violent. We may be frightening. But we are also loyal. We are protectors. And we never abandon those who need us. The countdown reached 0. The Singularity weapon detonated. The Nexus collapsed inward, crushed by gravity so intense it warped space-time itself. The explosion expanded outward, destroying everything in its path. The dark matter shield shattered. Devourer ships simply ceased to exist. The silence after the explosion was absolute. For 5 months, the galaxy had echoed with the sounds of war. Now, suddenly there was nothing but quiet. Admiral Kim stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the sensors confirm what her heart already knew. Every Devourer signal had disappeared. The threat was gone. Her fleet, or what remained of it, floated in space among the wreckage of the greatest battle ever fought. Casualty report, Kim said quietly. Lieutenant Han worked her console with shaking hands. 43 ships lost in the final battle, Admiral. Total human casualties for the entire campaign, 43,000 dead, 12,000 wounded. Out of 50,000 personnel who began this war, only 7,000 are combat-ready. Kim closed her eyes. 43,000 people? 43,000 soldiers who would never see Earth again? 43,000 families who would receive notification of their loss? And for what? To save a galaxy that had imprisoned humanity for 2 centuries, but then she thought of Captain Song's final words. Some things are worth dying for. If humanity had learned anything from its bloody history, it was that truth. Send the message to all ships, Kim ordered. The war is over. We won. Begin rescue and recovery operations. And someone contact the Galactic Council. Tell them it is time to talk. 3 days later, Admiral Kim stood before the assembled Galactic Council. The chamber was packed with representatives from every surviving species, all watching the scarred human warrior who had saved their civilization. Speaker Thelvax spoke first. Admiral Kim, on behalf of the Galactic Council and all the species you have saved, we offer our deepest gratitude. Your sacrifice and that of your people will never be forgotten. Kim nodded but said nothing. She was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Ambassador Telmara stood up. However, we must now address humanity's future in our galaxy. Your methods during this war were effective but troubling. The use of extreme violence, the disregard for warfare conventions, the apparent comfort with self-sacrifice, these things concern many of us. We must discuss whether humanity can safely integrate into our peaceful society. Kim had expected this. She had prepared a speech, carefully worded to be diplomatic and non-threatening. But standing there, looking at the faces of aliens who owed humanity everything yet still feared them, she decided to speak from her heart instead. You want to know if we are safe? Kim asked. If we can be peaceful? The honest answer is no. We cannot be like you. We carry violence in our blood. It is part of who we are, forged over millennia of survival on a world that tried to kill us. We have fought wars over land, over resources, over ideas. We have done terrible things to each other. The chamber was silent, hanging on her every word. But we also learned from that violence. We learned loyalty. We learned sacrifice. We learned that strength means nothing if you do not use it to protect the weak. You lived in peace for 1,000 years because you were never truly threatened. We never had that luxury. Every day of human history was a fight to survive. And yes, that made us violent, but it also made us strong. She paused, meeting the eyes of the council members. You asked for our help. We gave it. We bled for you. We died for you. 43,000 humans sacrificed their lives so your children could live. And now you want to debate whether we deserve a place in this galaxy? Fine, debate it. But know this, we are not asking for permission anymore. We earned our place. With blood and fire and sacrifice, we earned it. The chamber erupted in argument. Some representatives supported Kim. Others demanded humanity be re-quarantined. The debate raged for hours, getting nowhere. Then a small voice spoke up. Excuse me. Everyone turned to see young Piptic standing at the visitor's entrance, holding Private Kong's hand. The child had insisted on attending the council session, and Kong had been unable to refuse. You should not be here, child, Thelvax said gently. This is council business. I know, Piptic replied in careful but clear galactic standard. But you are talking about my friends. The humans. And I want to say something. Thelvax looked at Ambassador Telmara, who nodded reluctantly. Very well, speak. Piptic walked to the center of the chamber, still holding Kong's hand. She looked up at all the adult representatives. The humans scare me sometimes, she said honestly. They are loud and angry, and they break things. When I first saw them, I was terrified. But when the monsters came to my world, when the devourers killed my parents and everyone else, the humans stood between us and the dark. Private Kong protected me. She held me when I cried. She taught me that being strong does not mean being gentle. The child looked around at the council members. You say the humans are violent? They are. But they use their violence to save us. Is that not what heroes do? You say they are dangerous. They are. But they are dangerous to bad things, not to us. I'm a child, and even I can see this. Why can you not? The chamber fell silent. The simple words of a young survivor carried more weight than hours of political debate. Ambassador Telmara stood slowly. The child is right. We have been so focused on our fear that we forgot our gratitude. She turned to face Kim. Admiral, I apologize. I spoke against humanity because I was afraid of what you represent, change, challenge, a reminder that peace must be defended. But my fear does not justify my ingratitude. Humanity has earned not just a place in our galaxy but our respect. One by one, other representatives stood and echoed her sentiment. Not all of them, but enough. When the vote was finally called, the result was clear. The quarantine would be lifted. Humanity would be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with rights to settle 12 new systems beyond their solar system, but more importantly, they would be recognized as equals. Admiral Kim accepted the decision with quiet dignity, but inside she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. It was not everything they deserved, but it was a start. The council voted to erect a memorial at the site where the Nexus had been. A simple black stone pillar would float in space, listing the name of every human who died in the war. At its base, words were carved in both human and galactic script. When the galaxy pleaded for help, humanity answered with firepower. They were not gentle. They were not kind. But they were exactly what we needed. 5 years later, Colonel Yoon-jae stood in a training facility on Earth, looking at the newest recruits joining the Galactic Defense Force. Half were human. Half were aliens from a dozen different species, all volunteering to learn human military tactics. Listen carefully, Yoon addressed the mixed group. What you will learn here is not pretty. It is not civilized. It is brutal, direct, and effective. The galaxy will never fully trust us. They will always remember what we are capable of. But they will also remember that when extinction came calling, we were the ones who said, "Not today." He paced in front of the recruits. Some of you are here because you lost someone in the war. Some are here because you want to be strong like the humans you saw fighting. Some are here because you believe the galaxy needs protectors, not just diplomats. Whatever your reason, understand this. Being a warrior is not about loving violence. It is about being willing to use it when no other option remains. The recruits stood at attention. Human and alien side by side, united by a common purpose. Sergeant Kang My-rae, now an instructor, supervised weapons training. Young Piptik, who had been adopted by a galactic family but remained close to Kang, visited often to watch the training sessions. The child was now 8 years old and had announced her intention to join the defense force when she came of age. You do not have to follow this path, Kang told her gently. You can live a peaceful life. I know, Piptik replied. But you taught me that peace must be protected. Humans understand that. I want to understand it too. In orbit above Earth, the Indomitable sat in a museum berth, preserved as a memorial to the war. Visitors from across the galaxy came to see the scarred warship that had led humanity's fleet. They walked its corridors, read the names etched on its walls, and tried to understand the species that had saved them. Admiral Kim, now retired, sometimes visited the ship. She would stand on the bridge where she had commanded so many battles and remember the faces of those who had not returned. Captain Song, Captain Lee, all the young soldiers who had died too soon, but she also remembered the victories. The lives saved, the civilizations preserved, the future secured. One evening, she stood at the observation window. Looking down at Earth, Commander Park Dae-ho joined her. He was old now, his hair completely white, but his eyes were still sharp. Do you think we made the right choice? Kim asked. Answering the council's call? Park considered the question. We lost 43,000 people. We traumatized thousands more. We unleashed humanity's capacity for violence on an unprepared galaxy. But we also saved trillions of lives. We proved that humanity could use our dark nature for good. And we earned our place among the stars. Yes, Admiral. We made the right choice. Kim nodded slowly. I hope Captain Song would agree. She would, Park said with certainty. She died knowing her sacrifice mattered. That is all any warrior can ask for. They stood in silence, two old soldiers watching the world they had fought to protect. Below them, humanity continued to grow, to explore, to build. Some would always fear them. Some would always remember the violence they were capable of.